Welcome to Two Sons Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I am very, very excited to talk about House of the Dragon. What was it, episode 4 or 5? I can't remember which.
Who knows? It was good.
The first dragon on dragon action that we get in season 2.
D on D. Now that we're out of the Star Wars podcast phase and back to the House of the Dragon phase, we can say stuff like that. We don't have children viewing our episodes.
So, dude,
just kidding.
I have been so excited for you to see something like this. Because
what if I would have just been so disappointed? Like, oh, yeah, that sucked.
I'd be disappointed.
you would no longer be my friend.
So Luke didn't watch Game of Thrones. He only saw season 1, and we're working on that. I think we're gonna do a whole rewatch of Game of Thrones where we do shows around it. I think that would be great for the show too.
Right.
We'll get it. I mean, we can all do a Game of Thrones rewatch together. But like one of the things,
it'll take us 7 years.
Season 1 did not have a moment like this. Like, it was good. There were great Game of Thrones moments, like when Viserys walks in and gets on the throne and reasserts Lucerys Valerian's claim to Driftmark, right? There have been really cool moments, but there are these moments that have happened in Game of Thrones, like the Battle of Blackwater Bay, like the Battle of the Bastards, like the Long Night. There are all these like great moments in Game of Thrones that are like absolute jaw-dropping, like unbelievable climaxes in the show.
I've been anointed now.
And you haven't seen anything like that. And to me, this was one of those episodes.
Yeah.
It's one of my 5 favorite Game of Thrones episodes ever.
Wow, that's high.
When Carly and I were watching it, as soon as Meleys showed up at Rook's Rest, Carly and I both, like, we looked like that, like the meme you see where the guy like leans forward when it's go time in a video game. Like, we both stopped what we were doing. We both leaned forward, just like jaw dropped, and watched the show. And it's the classic Game of Thrones thing where it's like these incredible action scenes, but everything has just so much build up over so long. That like one of the specific things that Rhaenys talked about through both seasons was the idea of like how most of the men in Westeros at this point have never actually seen combat. And like when Jacaerys Valerian is like, send me in my dragon, Rhaenyra is like, no, you don't have experience. And there's
one of my favorite. Imagined what that would have looked like if she would have sent him?
Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh my gosh.
But like, so
that would have been awful.
When Rhaenys goes out and she kind of like touches Meleys on the shoulder and just goes like, it's time to go to battle again.
It's time to die.
But like that moment, I'm like, this is so cool because it's like Meleys and Rhaenys, like, they know what this entails. They know how ugly it can get. They know all this kind of stuff.
Well,
and like,
it started tender and it ended tender too. Right before her dragon died, they're like looking at each other in the eye. And like, we're in this together, and then they fall to their death.
Oh my dude, it was
wild.
It was unbelievable. It was just classic Game of Thrones. And so let's start with that last scene. So there's a lot of misdirection, and one of the things I think has been really fascinating, like, and it's kind of like an interesting commentary on like being realistic versus following your moral compass. And like, for instance, there's this war that's about to take place, and the 2 primary decision-making factions are literally Criston Cole and Aemond because Aegon has kicked out Otto Hightower and has basically tuned out Alicent, right? And so Cole and Aemond are running the show, and there's a really cool moment where Aemond like speaks High Valyrian to Aegon is just
in front of everybody,
basically just like in the nicest way possible, calling his brother an incompetent piece of shit, you know. and then the other side, you have you have Rhaenyra and her main advisor, who's Rhaenys, right? And like both of them their perspective is like, this shit's going to get ugly. Tons of people are going to die. Dragons are going to literally turn this into a complete bloodbath. Like, this is going to get ugly. What can we do to stop the war? Mm-hmm. Whereas Criston and Aemond are like, what are we going to do to win the war?
Right.
And like, I would argue that part of the reason why the Greens are so ahead of the Blacks at this point with this dramatic victory at Rook's Rest, like they take down Meleys, who's the largest dragon at Dragonstone at the time. I think Caraxes might be bigger. I'm not sure. But they kill Meleys. They kill one of the key advisors to the Queen. Meleys falls on the wall, and so they capture Rook's Rest.
Yeah.
And there's damage done to the Greens as well, because Aegon is obviously wounded severely and his dragon Sunfire is wounded severely.
Right.
But those two weren't real threats in this war.
Not from a battle standpoint,
No.
not from a fighting standpoint.
If he's gonna ride
Yeah.
drunk every time, like
I was thinking about that, dude. So I think you'd sober up pretty fast on your way. over there.
yeah, like you're like,
yeah.
you're like
People joke around that you can't get drunk on your wedding day, even though people do it. I know,
Yeah.
but like coming from a guy that got married, I know I threw some back that night, and I really didn't get drunk, and it's because you're like kind of keyed up.
You're
right?
keyed up,
yeah.
yeah.
And like that would be on steroids if you're about to go fight a dragon with your dragon.
It's like the adrenaline overpowers the alcohol in,
Right.
in a certain way, and like I definitely got drunk on my wedding night, but it was well after the wedding. Like
That was a fun night. That was a great night, Jay.
I think I may or may not have showed up to the after party in a robe.
Yeah, I think you did.
I think I did.
I think you did. There's actually a lot of classic pictures.
There
from
was
that
a
night.
lot of my wife and I's wedding. It was a great night.
Yep.
Anyway, so
Anyways.
we're not gonna go down that road any further. So like when I like that battle though was a huge loss for the Blacks, you know, and like I do think there's something to be said about the fact that like as much as, you know, because Rhaenys says to Corlys, she's like Corlys is like, where's the queen, you know, and she's like, I would imagine she's trying to bring us back from the abyss. And like Rhaenys was actually the one who suggested to Rhaenyra at the beginning of the last episode, like, you should talk to Alicent to see if you can salvage this thing. But like the Blacks and their insistence on trying to avoid the war actually led to them losing an important early battle. Did you kind of see that as well?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I totally agree.
And like one of the things about Aemond and Kristen Cole is like they're leaning into it, and that is an early advantage. And like I genuinely don't remember what happens after this point, and so I'm excited. And I'm doing my own kind of like personal endeavor to not read up on it because I want to be surprised as things go along.
Yeah, and obviously I'm going to be surprised every single step of the way because I'm so illiterate when it comes to anything Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. These podcasts are good for me because I literally just like buckle up and I'm just like, all right, Jay, like fill me in on what I just watched.
Tell me what all this means.
Dude, I can't even get the names right half the time, you know?
But like I thought that the scene after Kristen Cole wakes up.
Yeah.
So obviously Meleys
there's a lot to break down there.
Meleys
for sure.
fucks up Sunfire, kills him, right? Or doesn't kill him, but damages him severely. He ends up crashing. Oh, actually, well, let's talk about this. So Meleys and Sunfire are thrashing at each other.
Right.
Meleys is digging into Sunfire's chest. I thought it was interesting. Did you see how it was like oil?
Yeah,
comes out?
And then it seemed to bother the soldiers that it fell onto.
Because it was like hot oil.
Yeah,
it makes sense because like you haven't seen this in Game of Thrones, but in Game of Thrones, like when the dragon like opens their mouth and they're about to blow fire, you actually see the fuel lines on the edges of their mouth. They're like little tubes, and like that's how they like.
Interesting.
I'm pretty,
that's like the actual fuel.
Yeah, like they can start the flame through their breath, but then like there's fuel. So like that was fascinating. But
yeah,
Aemond Targaryen yelled out Dracarys with no concern over whether or not his brother was going to die.
I think you could say he was less than surgical on his approach.
No. He did not care about collateral damage.
Dude, he was wide-eyed and knew exactly what he was doing. And then, of course, after his brother is in a heap on the ground, he's about to kill him. And then Sir Kristen Cole walks up on him and is like, hey, Aegon, where's your brother? Essentially, and he sheathes his sword.
Yeah, dude, like
that was wild.
And by the way, like one of the ways I interpreted that too, like Sunfire was curled up around Aegon, and there's a similar scene in one of the later seasons of Game of Thrones where Daenerys Targaryen, her dragon Drogon, ends up taking some damage in a conflict,
sacrificing themselves,
and he curls up around Daenerys to like protect her. So like that's kind of like a thing. So like honestly, like if Aemond had tried to kill Aegon, he probably would have gotten killed by Sunfire. So? Yeah,
Sunfire was in bad shape though, almost to the point where I wonder if Sunfire comes back this season.
I don't know what happens. I do know that Aegon survives because I just remember that from the time that I read through stuff and. I think any of you guys who watched after the credits, did you watch that?
Right, yeah, the previews. They show his empty chair as if, not that he's dead, but as if he's ill.
And they speak about like his condition, so he's clearly alive. And like there's an awesome scene where like they actually drag Melee's head through the city and then give Aegon credit for killing him. Did you notice that?
No, I did not notice. I think Graham was like screaming at that point. I missed that.
So, but yeah, like the Aemond trying to take down Aegon, which I thought was interesting. Like to Aemond's credit, though, like probably should be king compared to his brother in the sense that like he's just more competent.
You and I were talking about that last season where he just has this aura about him and how he carries himself like a king would.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to see him as a king because, yeah, he's kind of evil. Actually, he's very evil. I'll just say that. But just like the Sith, I don't think he'd go out of his way to be evil. I think he just is.
He'd do it to get what he wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meaning like the Sith just don't go gallivanting around the universe just killing people to kill people. There's got to be a reason if they're going to kill somebody, and I think that's how he would approach his if he was king.
It has to serve the imperative. Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the things I thought was interesting too is like Kristen Cole when he ran up on Aemond was like, Aemond, like he's like telling him not to do it. It's fascinating.
You thought he was telling him not to do it?
I
thought
he
was
absolutely.
Just Oh, really?
Absolutely.
I interpret that different. I thought it was just like, hey, I know you. I'm gonna yell out your name.
No, I thought
because he didn't know where.
I
he didn't know
saw
where
Aemond holding the sword. I thought he was gonna like deliver a coup de grace, and then he saw him sheath.
But he didn't even know where the king was at that point. He wasn't aware of where he was.
Possibly
because he's like, where is he? And then he's like right here.
I think he was trying to stop Aemond from delivering a coup de grace, but I could be wrong.
Also, Sir Kristen Cole just took a massive blow.
Yeah,
I mean, he has a concussion.
He has some CTE for sure.
Yeah.
So
he has a concussion.
In season 1, there's a conversation when they're searching for Aegon when Viserys dies and they're trying to bring him up to ascend to the throne. There's a conversation in an alleyway where Aemond actually like pleads his case to Kristen for why he deserves to be king instead. He's like, it's I who read the histories. It's I who did all the studying and like blah, blah, blah. And so like Kristen knows Aemond wants to be king.
Right.
And so I thought that kind of like it had a certain kind of role to play there. But Vhagar in action. Vhagar's just
the big boy.
I literally thought like as I was watching and I was like, Vhagar's just going to be a problem. Like he's just going to be a problem to deal with.
Yeah, the fact that they camouflaged him with a bunch of like tree limbs was so neat.
Cole and Aemond's plan was a smart plan.
It was a really good plan. And then seeing him fly in amongst the trees and you only saw tips of his wings every like half second.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
The dragon scenes were like you talked about how the CGI hasn't been quite up to dragon speed yet. I thought they kind of nailed it.
Oh yeah, I don't think I could have asked for
One
more.
of my favorite scenes in the episode was when you see the view from the battlefield looking up, and you see Vhagar and Melee's going at each other. Like that was an epic scene. But I wanted to get back to the Kristen piece. So like Kristen, when he wakes up though, like he starts like trying to like he's disoriented and he's looking around, he's seeing all the carnage, and he like taps that one shoulder on the shoulder and he like kind of disintegrates.
The soldier, and then he literally just disintegrates. That was kind of cool.
There's a very similar scene in a season 7 episode in Game of Thrones involving the Lannister armies just getting absolutely shredded by Daenerys Targaryen's dragons. And in it, like there's this moment where Jaime Lannister is like very similarly like looking around, and I think the goal of the scene, and I wonder if you picked this up as well, but I think the goal of the scene was to make it very clear that this dragon thing might be a little too intense to be worth it. Like I think even for Kristen Cole, like it was like, oh my god, this is what this is like.
The losses are way too high.
This is what we unlocked. Like it's almost barbaric, right? It's like there was a commission that was sent to Hiroshima, I believe, where they took a bunch of photographs and like there was like a newspaper article and all this stuff, and like it went around and the entire world was like, hold on a second,
let's never do this again.
And that is why after Hiroshima and Nagasaki no one's done it, because like literally like when people actually saw, it was like, wait, this is not what human beings should ever consider doing to each other.
It's so bad that even like talking about it now just gives me a sinking feeling.
Oh, dude,
like,
it's bad.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It's really bad. But you're totally right. Like the catastrophic nature of two dragons going at it is horrendous.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And what's wild is there's no way that two dragons could fight each other and not just completely mangle each other. It's like two pit bulls going at it. Like, I'm sorry, but no matter what, neither one of those pit bulls is going to feel 100%
Everyone
after
loses.
that. Yeah, everyone loses that.
Even Vhagar, like Melee's dug deep into Vhagar's chest.
Huge wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not only that, it's wild to think that all the human lives lost in that battle literally didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Like the outcome of that battle would have been the same whether those humans were there or not. And if three dragons battled each other like they did, like literally the outcome would have been exactly the same.
No, you're right. Like even there's this collateral damage moment when Melee's and Vhagar both hit the ground.
Yeah, and everyone's around
where
them.
Vhagar's like just like trying to get back up in the air and he's just stomping. And he's just killing like 2 or 3 people with every step. Like it's just, it's
humans
like,
have no purpose being around giant dragon feet.
Yeah, and I mean that comes to fruition in like one of the final episodes of Game of Thrones, and I think it's the 5th episode of season 8. When Daenerys actually does sack King's Landing. Like, it doesn't matter that the armies are there. Like, the Golden Company's there for the Lannisters. There's all these Northmen. There's all these Dothraki. They're getting ready to attack. And, like, Daenerys' dragon just burns the city down. Like, she's just so... Like, dragons are just such an insane amount of power. And I did think that scene was, like, deliberately trying to drive that point home. Like, this is a power that we should never have trifled with.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was clearly... like the kind of goal that they were going for there. It turns out that Daemon is still going insane in Harrenhal.
Daemon's having a really hard time.
He's having a rough time.
Do you think he's being drugged by that one woman? Just like repeatedly? Do you think she's just continually just like drugging him over and over and over again?
So I haven't read into it yet, but there's some significance to that character.
The
female character.
Really?
Yeah. And I need to look into that more. But like from what I understand, like that's something they're going to dive further into.
It's interesting for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting. And like in the Daemon thing is like part of me wants to be like, dude, like this is kind of what I was getting at the beginning of the show where it's like the Blacks are just like they're not taking this war seriously enough yet. And like it's like Daemon's fucking around at Harrenhal doing God knows what. Like Rhaenyra is still trying to sue for peace. Like and meanwhile there's an army marching, you know, north and
taking over land after land after land.
Yeah. And in that part I like every time I watch the Daemon scenes I just get frustrated because I'm like dude, like what are you going to do to help this situation, you
especially know? What's the character's name? He's the Keeper of Whispers or whatever his name is.
Oh, Larys.
Larys. The fact that he's apparently like financially in charge of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, so like one of the things that happens in Game of Thrones is like when someone manipulates a situation and like does a favor for the king or whoever's in charge, they'll be like, I will reward you with Harrenhal and all of its attendant lands, and like that was Harrenhal gets passed around literally like so much in the Game of Thrones
just because it used to be so valuable, but it's not anymore.
Everyone's in charge of Harrenhal at one point in time.
Okay,
but like it's Harrenhal is like just the castle that gets kind of given to people, and but like theoretically you would get the castle and you'd get all of the attendant lands. There, they would have like a certain standing militia that would be responsible to come to your aid whenever you call them. They would obviously pay you taxes for the protection and all that kind of stuff. Like that's how that's supposed to work. But Larys Strong, his kin is in the castle, but the castle itself is effectively useless at this point.
Right.
And so Larys is actually controlling the finances of that region at that point in time.
Okay.
Is basically
that makes sense.
When those people pay tribute, they're paying it to Larys. They're not paying it to the dude in the castle.
I see.
There's no and that was the genius of Cole and Aemond's plan was like, we could go get Harrenhal, but it's the obvious target, and it's not really a benefit to us. But if we go to Rook's Rest, we can bait them into throwing a dragon at us, and then we could use Vhagar to kill it and deliver a massive blow. And they end up taking out Rhaenys and Meleys, which was a substantial blow.
For as much as Sir Criston Cole's being hated right now, it was a really good choice, even though he got jacked up doing it. And they couldn't have foreseen, you know, the potential loss of their king.
No, of course not.
That was just literally bad timing.
Well, both Cole and Aemond were like, this idiot. Like,
yeah.
So that's the last thing I want to hit before we get out of here tonight.
All right.
One of the things that they do a really good job of is building out like this interesting kind of dynamic with Aegon Targaryen, where he is one, a degenerate that just wants to party with his buddies, but two, has this like buried under all the douchebaggery, he's got like this little tiny sense of self-importance,
Right.
which is like, but I am the king and I should be more involved. But I want to go party with my boys all the time. But I wanted like, and obviously like Aemond calls him out in front of the small council and makes him look like a guy who like is all the Targaryens can speak High Valyrian except for Aegon. Like he hasn't done his job, right? Like he's out, banging hookers and doing all this kind of stuff while everyone's trying to fight the war.
And keep in mind,
war.
like days ago, his son just got killed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a good
Right?
point.
Like what an idiot.
Yeah.
Like
then we have the scene with Alicent where she basically like confronts him about how like I hoped that when you became king that you would
listen,
like want to listen, that you would want to learn, that you want to, and it very clearly was the case. And then Aegon's like sense of self-importance kicks in again and goes like, Mom, what do you want me to do?
right.
And then she's like, nothing.
Yeah, that's not an easy pill to swallow. That's not what he wanted to hear.
And that was such an aggressive thing to say. And like that led to like what she should have said is like, I want you to learn. I want you to take your job seriously. I want you to do all this kind of stuff. But Alicent is just so. I think Alicent, after what happened with Rhaenyra at the church thing, and all of the shit, all the stuff that's happened. Obviously, her grandson dying, all these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's so sick of it all. And like she even said, there was this really cool scene with her and Lord Larys, where she's basically like. It doesn't really matter what Viserys
they both
wants.
talked about. Yeah, that was a really interesting scene.
And she goes like, the significance of Viserys's intentions died with him. It's almost like Alicent has taken on a very nihilistic approach to like she's just like, oh, this is over, this is screwed, everything's like it's like actually
she's viewing it as like a train that can't be stopped.
Yeah,
and she's just on
exactly.
it.
So she's like, Aegon, just sit down and shut up, please, so that we can deal with this. And that obviously drives Aegon to drink himself onto his dragon and to enter the conflict.
It's like
and
the worst drunk
killed.
driving you can do.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it was fascinating. It was a great episode. I thought it was great. Game of Thrones. Like my guess is that between this season and the next 2 seasons, because I think they're doing 4 seasons of House of the Dragon, by the time this is done, you'll get to see 2 or 3 more moments like that. And that's the kind of thing. That's the payoff with Game of Thrones is those kinds of moments. And like when you see Rhaenys let go of Meleys's like the hit grips, and she just kind of like accepts her fate
and just falls.
Dude,
to death.
it is like it's just a cool moment. It's
Agreed.
sad. It's super sad. That's Game of Thrones does it by killing off your favorite characters. It's kind of their thing. And Rhaenys was one of my favorites, and this is how she went. But she died a warrior's death, man.
She did.
She did.
It's the best way to go. Apparently, that's what people like. It's not how I would like.
It's worth bringing up one other thing. She had an opportunity to leave.
She did. She turned back. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I thought about when she turned back was like, I think she thought about it very simply. I think she knew that she had wounded Vhagar, like because when Meleys clawed across Vhagar's chest.
Mm-hmm.
I think she looked at it as, no. She had not wounded Vhagar because Vhagar did the Dracarys that led to Sunfire and Aegon falling. There was a brief altercation, but Meleys escaped.
True.
True. And then as she was flying away, that's when she whispers like attack Meleys, remember? And what was fascinating about that though is like I was thinking about it because I was like when I watched it the first time I thought she was being stupid. And then I watched it the second time and I kind of thought about it from a different perspective. Rook's Rest was being besieged, I think is the actual word. And then there was still Vhagar there. So if she had left, Vhagar would have melted the walls of that castle. They would have wrecked the place, and a member of her small council with Rhaenyra, who is the leader, who's the owner of Rook's Rest, his castle would have been lost and all of his kin would have died. And so I literally think Rhaenys was like, I may only have a 10% chance of stopping this from happening, but it is my duty to try to stop this from happening. And that was kind of the way that I looked at it.
And
like,
solid take.
And it was, it was just a warrior's death. It was really cool. And shout out to Rhaenys.
It was that out of all the Game of Thrones / House of the Dragon content, that was by far the most I've enjoyed it. But again, because there's like nothing devaluing the show. Now, I'm not going to get on a high horse here, but that's probably why I enjoyed it. It's because it's just like great.
or it was the
cinematography.
payoff of a
was a
season
huge-
and a half
it was
of stuff.
True.
Yeah.
They're obviously I
that
can't,
was
I
probably
can't
the big. I think
downplay
that had more to do with the absence than the absence of hookers and
rubber weenies.
yeah, exactly. All right, that is all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting the show. I'm off to Vegas tomorrow for Summer League, which is going to be fun. I get back Sunday morning though, so we'll be right back for the usual House of the Dragon and Acolyte pair of episodes next week. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us, and we will see you then.
Thanks a lot.